Hey guys, I wanted to provide this short installation video which summarizes all the other videos I've put together. This is a quick reference guide which will be a little bit easier to reference rather than having to go through the 30+ minutes of video I shot earlier. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a diagram of all the wiring that you're going to need to be doing with the boost gauge. Let's go ahead and start first with the boost hose. This is the boost gauge. We're going to go ahead and start our installation here at the intake manifold. So at the intake manifold, you're going to find an appropriate spot where to attach your vacuum line. You need to buy a barb fitting that is the appropriate size for your vacuum line. Secure the barb fitting in place by adding some sealant of a sort, so that way the barb fitting doesn't come undone. Put your vacuum hose over that barb fitting, and then you're going to run about 6 feet of vacuum hose in any way you find necessary in order to reach this part of the engine bay. After you have routed the line, go ahead and rerun that route with wire loom, which is going to provide some heat insulation, and you're just going to go ahead and stick the vacuum hose in the middle of this loom and secure it in place with some zip ties. Once you get your hose and your loom to this side of the engine bay, you're going to go ahead and remove 1 and 2 tabs, pull this whole plastic piece off, and now you're going to have an opening in here which is going to allow you to access a cavity within the driver's side front wheel. You're going to go ahead and drop the extra hose and the wire loom into that cavity and let it fall. Then you're going to want to go to the side, raise your car up, put it on jack stands, and remove the driver's front wheel. After you move the front wheel, go to the back and remove 5 or 6 of these black plastic tabs, so that way you can pull back on the plastic lining. When you pull back on the plastic lining, find your hose and your loom that you dropped off earlier and pull it through. Go ahead and let that dangle there, then find the grommet, which is in the upper left hand corner of the wheel well. Let's go to that grommet. Okay, back with our diagram here. We've went from the intake manifold, we've wired our hose through the engine bay, and now we're entering the grommet. We are still outside the cabin at this point. To find the grommet, look at your pedals, go to the clutch pedal, and go into the upper left portion of the footwell. You're going to want to locate this grommet right here and push it out. Once you push out the grommet, get your drill bit set and drill a hole in the center of the grommet that's about the same diameter as your boost hose right here. Pull the excess boost hose, which was in the front wheel well, and pull it through the grommet. Then re-secure the grommet in place. Go ahead and continue to route your boost hose to the filter. From the filter, you're going to go ahead and continue with additional boost hose and connect it to the sensor. Going back to our diagram, we've went from the grommet to the filter, and now we're going to continue with additional boost hose, which is the same one as here, but it's going to be a different line that we're going to extend, and we're now going to connect to the boost sensor. A good place to plug in your boost sensor is remove this panel. And this is my boost sensor here. One side of the boost sensor will have a barbed fitting. You're going to secure your hose to that barbed fitting, just like it's shown here in the diagram. The other side of the boost sensor is going to have wiring, which we are going to route up to the boost gauge. For the Prosport gauge, this is the wiring for the boost sensor. Begin to route it up to this cavity here. Then you will need to remove this panel. and pull some of the wiring into here. Then you are going to have to remove this standard plastic cover, and then you're going to wire it underneath here, and the wiring will collect underneath here. Once that's in place, you can go ahead and connect that line to the back of your boost sensor. Taking a look at our map here, that is going to cover one of the 3 wires that we need to do for our boost gauge. Let's go ahead and continue with the control wire, which is going to be this control right here. This controls setting peak boost as well as changing the color of the boost gauge. This is very simple. What I went ahead and did with my Accelerate dual gauge pod was I drilled a hole on the side, I ran the wire inside, and then I connected it directly to the back of the gauge, and that's it. Going back to our map, we've taken care of the boost sensor wire and the control wire. Now we need to provide power to the boost gauge. Prosport supplies a power wire, which is very short. It's about 1 foot long, but that wire contains 4 other colors within it: black, red, orange, and white. And what you want to do is buy 16 gauge wire and extend all 4 of these wires from this location back down to this panel and back down into the footwell. Let's go ahead and review where each of the wires will go. Okay, the black wire is going to go ahead and you're going to extend that with 16 gauge wire, and then to the end of that 16 gauge wire you're going to attach a terminal, and then to that terminal you're going to secure it to a metal part on the frame. This is your grounding wire. Let me show you what I did with the black. I pulled as much of the black as I could over here. I extended it with 16 gauge wire down to here, which continued down into the footwell, and then I secured it to here, which is a bolt on a plate that connects to the clutch pedal. So that's the clutch pedal. Follow it to where it meets the firewall. Look for this bolt on the bottom right hand side and secure your terminal to that bolt. Your gauge is now grounded. So we've taken care of the black wire. Now let's go to the red wire. The red wire needs to be connected to a constant 12 volt power source. So what you're going to do is to the end of the stock power wire, which is red, you're going to attach a butt connector. You can decide to use gold-plated if you would like for a better connection. On the other end of the butt connector, you're going to attach another 50 inches of 16 gauge wire. And then you're going to run that wire back into the footwell and attach it to the end of an ADA circuit. So let me show you how that looks. From the gauge, the wire that they supply you will probably only reach to here. You're going to attach another 50 inches of 16 gauge wire, run it through here, back down through the side here, and down underneath the footwell here, and attach it to the end of this ADA circuit. This is what the ADA circuit looks like. It's this whole piece right here. And once you attach it to the end of the ADA circuit, go ahead and crimp it down. We're not going to go ahead into the connection yet. Let's go ahead and extend our orange and our white wires as well. You're going to do the same thing. Attach both of these to butt connectors, and then attach the other end of the butt connector to an additional 50 inches of 16 gauge wire for both. You're going to go ahead and do the same thing. The standard power wire will get you to here. Extend it with 16 gauge wire down to here, down to the footwell, and go ahead and secure it to a ADA circuit. You are going to need a total of 3 ADA circuits. Crimp them down on these locations. just like I've done here. I crimped one here, I crimped another one here, and I crimped another one here. These three are the these three are the red, white, and orange wires that came from our original Prosport power wire. Now what we need to figure out is where to plug them into our fuse box, and how to plug in fuses into the ADA circuit. The ADA circuit looks like this. One end of the ADA circuit contains two teeth that are actually going to plug into the fuse box. Above the teeth are two slots, the bottom slot and the top slot. The top slot is always going to be used for your accessory, which in this case is our boost gauge. For each of the three top slots, you're going to plug in a brand new 7.5 amp fuse. When you buy an ADA circuit, it doesn't just come with the ADA circuit, it comes with spare fuses as well. Look for ones that say 7.5 and plug that into the very top of the ADA fuse. The bottom of the ADA fuse is used for the standard fuse that is already in your fuse box. So for the purpose of this video, our white power wire is going to go to fuse number 1, our orange power wire is going to go to fuse number 16, and our red power wire is going to go to fuse number 20. So let's start with our white. According to the factory manual, slot number 1 is for the power windows and uses a 7.5 amp fuse. So you're going to get another 7.5 amp fuse for our white wire, and you're going to add that 7.5 amp fuse to the bottom, because the bottom is for what comes from the factory in the car. The top is going to be also 7.5 amps because, as we already discussed, that's what you need to use for the boost. Okay, for the orange. Well, the orange is going to be connected to port number 16. According to our Honda manual, slot number 16 is for the right headlights and uses a 10 amp fuse. So for our orange wire, in our ADA circuit, we're going to put a 10 amp brand new fuse into the bottom slot and a 7.5 amp fuse into the top slot. And then we're going to go ahead and move to our red power wire. Our red is going to be connected to fuse number 20. According to fuse number 20, it is not being used at all. It is a blank fuse. So nothing is connected in there. Because nothing is connected in there, we are not going to put anything into the bottom here. But we are going to put a 7.5 amp fuse to the top, because that's what's going to be used for the boost gauge. And then what you're going to do is connect the teeth of these ADA fuses into the following slots, as I've already discussed. For the red, you can use fuse number 20 or 22. For the orange, fuse number 16 or 17. And for the white, fuse number 1. And now, if you look at our diagram, we've completed all the wiring for our boost gauge. Once that's done, you're going to go ahead and put your gauges inside their pods, make sure the connections are fine in the back, and then secure the pod back in place. If you're using this Accelerate dual gauge cluster, it's very easy. I've made another video on how to install it. You basically pop the old one off, take 4 of the plastic tabs that came off the old one, install them into 1, 2, 3, and 4 spots on the back of the pod, and then push the pod back into place and it will clip in perfectly. When you go ahead and start up the car, this is what the gauge will look like for the Prosport. Alright. And the Prosport gauge comes with some controls. You can use it to change the color. You can also use it to set peak boost functions. Okay, so right now my peak boost is set to 10. You can adjust this gauge to set it to any kind of boost levels you find appropriate. So that's a brief video explaining all the installation steps for the Prosport boost gauge. The air-fuel ratio gauge is coming up next, and I will post videos of that as they come along. Hope this was helpful for you guys.